Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to take you through my updated draft ahead of FPL Game Week 1 and discuss what has changed over the last week in terms of my strategy and the players that I'm picking. If you do enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, normally I would just jump straight into the draft and just talk through the players, and if I have anything to say, I'll discuss it within the context of the draft. But I actually think it's useful at the start of this video to just update you with what I'm currently thinking about right now, because the whole point of pre-season is that it's experimental. You try different strategies, you try different structures with your squad, you try out different players and see how that feels, and of course you update that with pre-season information as well. So as of right now, the draft I'm about to show you is different. I will always say though, here on my channel, I am never different for the sake of being different. So if something is different, it's because I think it could work. But I also think I need to contextualize that and explain where my head is right now in terms of, again, structure, strategy. And these are the things that you should be thinking about right now. Realistically, as much as we might like to discuss it, it doesn't matter which £4.5 million defender you have in your team right now. What matters is how many you have. Do you have 2 premiums or 3 premiums or none of the big guys? What is your captaincy rotation looking like? When are you planning on playing your chips? These are the questions you should be asking yourself, I think, more so than hyperfixating on specific personnel, like which 6.5 million midfielder. It doesn't matter right now. You can make that decision a little bit closer to the deadline. So these are the questions that I have been asking myself across the past week, and I by no means have all of the answers, and I'm almost definitely not correct. But that is what has caused me to build the draft and show the draft that I'm about to show you later today. So it might seem crazy to some of you that I have a chip strategy on the screen. You might think it is far too early to be thinking about that. That's absolutely fine. But for me, I'm an absolute nerd. I like planning ahead. And I've had a bit of a think about chip strategy. And I'd like to start with the bench boost because it's a chip that I absolutely hate. I never tend to get the bench boost particularly correct. It always requires much more planning than I actually want. And it's always incredibly disappointing. And almost always, I end up having to use transfers for it and or take hits. And it gets me about 12 points. I'm like, why did I bother doing all that planning, using my wildcard to try and build this perfect bench boost? And it didn't actually go that well. So for that reason, I am looking at a bench boost in Game Week 1. I'm probably, I would say now, about 65-70% likely to play it. For the reasons that I just said, I don't have to use any transfers or hits on the bench boost because I've got unlimited transfers in Game Week 1. The other reason is a wildcard somewhere between 7 and 13. Game Week 7 and 13, that's sort of a safe window for a wildcard. Probably for me, more like Game Week 10 to 13. I want to build the best starting 11 I can. Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Newcastle all go on a really nice fixture run around that point. I want to be able to possibly have Salah, Haaland and Saka and maybe someone like an Elanga in there. And I might also want like double Arsenal defence. You're not going to be able to afford that and build a perfect bench boost. So when the time comes that I want a wild card around, again, game weeks 10 to 13 and build a really strong squad with all of the best players I can, I don't always want to be thinking, yeah, but I've got to have a 4.5 goalkeeper on the bench, or but I also need a 5.5 million pound midfielder as my 8th attacker. I want to be able to strip all of that money out of that. So I don't think it's perfect by any means, a Game Week 1 bench boost, and we can discuss it more over the coming weeks, but I wanted to contextualise that at the moment right now, I am leaning towards it just to get it out of the way, and then from then on in, I can just focus on my starting 11, and any opportunity I have to remove money from the bench, including the wildcard, I can do that. That wildcard window is also in mind, again, like I said, 10 to 13. So I'm not looking at the first 3 weeks only. I'm also looking at what might I need from sort of game week 6 to 10 as well. So I'm looking a bit longer term. A team like Aston Villa, for example, Aston Villa have really nice fixtures for the first 8 game weeks. You don't need to touch them at all. You can play them essentially every week. As a result, more Aston Villa players have entered my thinking. The next point, and I really don't like this element, but there is a real absence of Liverpool in the draft that you're about to see. The idea for me in this draft is if there's an absence of Liverpool, well then great, in Game Week 4 when they play Burnley, I'll have to free hit 3 of them in. And with the free hit, there is not a standout game week or a standout window to play the free hit. I've thought about this so much over the last week, there isn't. It's going to be team dependent, but what it essentially comes down to, is there a week where there are lots of good players from good teams that you don't own in your team that you would like to? And when I look at Liverpool's fixtures over the first 8 game weeks, there's some okay ones in there, but really the only one that I would desperately, like 100% want to captain Salah and would desperately want to own Liverpool players, it's game week 4 against Burnley. So with this team, the idea would be start with fewer, or maybe none, Liverpool players, and then you would free hit in game week 4, and you would be able to own the 3 best Liverpool players that you wanted for game week 4. And then you would also potentially have someone like a Haaland in game week 6 against Burnley. So, again, if it feels like there is an absence, it's still a criticism of the draft, I will say that, but you can still own them for game week 4. The other thing that I'm starting to think about is how much the forwards could be absolutely critical in FPL this season, especially early doors. You've got Erling Haaland, who always starts the season well. Alexander Isak, who at the time of recording, I don't know, but could be off to Liverpool. Even if he stays at Newcastle, he's a great option. You've got Ollie Watkins, who 2 seasons in a row has outscored Haaland in FPL. He's fantastic at 9 million. You've got Gyökeres coming to the Premier League as well. Ekatike, you've got Bowen, loads of good 7.5s. In the midfield, there's just a little bit less, right? When we're looking at the midfielders, you've got some decent cheap options. You've got Palmer, Saka, Salah. You've got the likes of, on your screen, Florian Wirtz, maybe Phil Foden, Cunha and Burmo. But at that mid-price in midfield, I'm not feeling it. So I'm starting to wonder, is a top-heavy draft actually the way forward? There are lots of expensive forwards in FPL that I could see doing really, really well and would be good for minutes. So I'm actually starting to pivot a little bit towards putting more money in my forward line and less in my midfield, as you'll see in this draft. And then the only other final thing before we actually take a look at my team is centre-backs are king for me. I've looked into the data across the last week. These DEFCON points, defensive contribution points, so defenders get, if they get 10 plus clearances, blocks, interceptions and tackles in a single game, they'll get 2 points. And obviously midfielders and forwards, if they get 12 plus, but you add ball recoveries in there, they get 2 FPL points. This is going to make a huge impact on overall points across the season. So I think centre-backs are now better assets in general if they have defensive contribution points than attacking fullbacks. You'll see in my draft right now, I think I've got 5 centre-backs, and that's probably the way I'll end up going. So sorry for a little bit of a ramble at the start there. So to recap, I like Bench Boost 1 a lot. The draft you're about to see has a Bench Boost 1. I'm about 70% likely. My wildcard window is somewhere between 10 and 13. And when I end up free hitting, it will depend on who I own. Right, so if I own loads of Liverpool, I obviously wouldn't free hit in game week 4. If I own 0 Man City, a game week 6 free hit when they play Burnley looks good. Hopefully that makes sense. So you just free hit in the week where your team looks weakest. And then I've got lots of centre-backs and potentially some defensive contribution midfielders in my team too. Let's now take a look at the draft and hopefully that helps to contextualise the players that I've picked. So guys, let's discuss the draft and we'll see how much you absolutely hate it. A cheeky little request just to start the video. Can I please ask you to consider subscribing? If you enjoy the video today or you've seen a couple of my videos before, but you've not yet subscribed, it really does help me out. Drop a like while you're down there as well. But most importantly, please do consider subscribing. I really appreciate it. So yes, the bench boost at the moment, not committed, is active. So for this draft, all 15 players count, but I also don't want to go overboard. So you will see when you look at the full bench, when you can see 3 of them already, it's not the strongest bench boost. I don't claim for it to be. I'm not expecting it to be. I don't want it to be. What I want it to be, though, is a bench that could get me points. It will serve me well up until I wildcard because it gives me some rotational players, but it also allows me to have a strong enough starting 11. So that's the key thing that I'm thinking about right now. Just a quick note, please do join my league. It's 6ThugV or 6THUGV. I'd absolutely appreciate you joining. And also, this team is rated at 90% according to Fantasy Football Hub. We'll have a little bit of a chat about Hub later, and it's predicted to get about 69 points, including the bench. If you want to get your own team rated and you want to see your own predicted points for game week 1, there'll be a link down below in the description to see if you can get your team rated for free. Well, you can get your team rated for free, and let me know what you get as your team rating. So let's start with the goalkeepers. I'm not enjoying this situation at all, I'll be entirely honest. And throughout, you will see that I'm not enjoying building squads because it's really difficult. 9.5 million is way too much for me to spend on 2 goalkeepers, but that's what I've got at the moment in Sanchez and Verbruggen. My concern is, at the moment, Leeds have signed a new goalkeeper, so Darlow is no longer going to be first choice. We hoped he would be at 4. And whilst Kinski, I still think has a chance, in Spurs' most recent friendly, Vicario was the starting goalkeeper in their stronger team, and then Kinski came on when a lot of the other sort of B team players came on. So at the moment, it doesn't even look like Kinski's first choice. So I think we have to go under the assumption right now that we're not going to have a £4 million goalkeeper. And so I've got to go 4.5 for my bench player on the bench boost. So I could go for 2 4.5s, but I really don't love many of the 4.5s. I think Brentford are going to really struggle this season. So I don't love their Kelleher pick, although he will make a lot of saves. You've got Petrovic, but it's just not a great opening fixture at all against Liverpool. So again, on the bench boost, that doesn't feel great. Verbruggen is currently the 4.5 I have. I like him, but again, not the perfect set of opening fixtures. But Fulham at home in game week 1's okay. And if you compare him with the right goalkeeper, he can rotate in. I think Areola has been having generational stinker after generational stinker, bless him. He's not been performing well in the Premier League. In the recent pre-season game against Man United, he had an absolute howler. It sounds like they're trying to sign a new goalkeeper. So I might have missed one or two there, but essentially I don't really love many of the 4.5s, but I think the £5 million goalkeepers are so good. Sanchez, Sells, Henderson. If Vicario starts, Vicario. I think there's lots of really nice 5 millions in there, but in particular, it's Sanchez and Sells that I really like. At the moment, I've got Sanchez because I think the Forest defenders at their price are better than the Chelsea defenders at their price. So essentially, if I want a Chelsea and a Forest defender, which I have right now, I think I would rather Sanchez and a Forest defender than Sells and a Chelsea defender. So that leaves me with Sanchez and Verbruggen, and I think they're very good for Game Week 1. Both got home fixtures. I would essentially play Sanchez every week other than Game Week 7 when I think Verbruggen's got Wolves. So he would come in because Sanchez has a difficult fixture that week. So yeah, it's a lot of money to spend on goalkeepers, probably more than I would want to. If a 4 million goalkeeper arises that has any is going to start and has an okay fixture, I'll probably just put him in to save me a bit of money. So the 5 defenders as of right now are Murillo, Van de Ven, Tarkowski, Konsa, and Kilman. Something you will notice, that is 5 centre-backs. Something else you might notice, no £6 million defenders. So I don't have any of the real premiums. I've got Murillo and Tarkowski as the two 5.5s. You'll also notice no Liverpool, no Arsenal, no Man City in the defence. So I can understand right now, if you're going to sit there and go, Ross, that is an appalling defence, like no premium, like full premiums, no players from the 3 best teams there. And none of these really have like tons of attacking threat. But I think there is a real change in FPL with defensive contribution points and also the change to the bonus point system. So if you haven't yet seen defenders or players, it used to be net successful tackles, which used to be how many successful the tackles they made minus the amount of unsuccessful tackles. Now they just pick up 2 in the bonus point system every time they win a tackle. So even if they don't win or if they have a lot of unsuccessful tackles, centre-backs that make lots of tackles will also be good for bonus. So I'm looking at someone like Murillo. Last year, he was right at the top for baseline bonus out of all defenders. I think he picked up 18 bonus points in total as well. And he was incredible for those DEFCON points. So I've got the data in front of me here. He had an average of 10.05 for CBIT per 90. So he would, on average, every single game pretty much, be picking up, if you look at, again, across as an average, be picking up 2 fantasy Premier League points. So I think Murillo is a real standout for me, especially when you look at the fixtures, especially when you look at how good he is for bonus. However, someone like a Milenkovic or a Williams would offer more attacking threat. So you have to find that balance, but I do think he looks like he's really good. And Tarkowski, unbelievable. So he picked up in over, I think it was over 55% of his games, he picked up those DEFCON points. He averaged 9.77 CBIT per 90 last season. So Tarkowski and Murillo are in there because I think clean sheets are likely, because they play for very defensive teams. The fixtures are okay. And then also, Tarkowski in particular carries a little bit of attacking threat. And I also like the Game Week 1 fixture for the pair of them. Tarkowski hasn't yet been seen in the team for the pre-season tour, but he is in full team training. And apparently he could feature in the final game of pre-season in terms of the tour. So I think Tarkowski still has a good chance of starting Game Week 1. But let's keep an eye on it, because if there are any doubts about his fitness, there's no point picking him. That then means I've got 3 4.5s, and as I said in the intro section, I'm not hyper-fixating too much on who they are, but Van de Ven, Konsa, and Kilman are in. Kilman's actually pretty decent for DEFCON, so 7.58 CBIT per 90. He's nowhere near as good as the likes of Tarkowski and Murillo, but that's why he's 4.5, not 5.5. Him or Todibo, I do think could be better than Wan-Bissaka. I know Wan-Bissaka's playing further forward, but he's not the most attacking player, right? He's not got the best end product. So I think if you're going for a West Ham defender, I quite like going for Kilman or Todibo. The issue is some West Ham fans say that Todibo's been terrible and he needs to be dropped. And then some have said the same about Kilman. In all honesty, they're just not a very good defence. But in terms of a Game Week 1 fixture against Sunderland, in terms of having a chance for DEFCON points, I don't mind Kilman. Van de Ven's not great for DEFCON, and Spurs have been pretty inconsistent. I just rate Thomas Frank, and I love the Game Week 1 fixture. And after the Man City game in Game Week 2, Spurs have really, really nice fixtures. So I don't think Van de Ven's a great pick. If you look at Romero's DEFCON possibilities and potential, he's a much more defensive player and he's more likely to pick up those points. But I still feel like Van de Ven could offer potential. Esri Konsa is rubbish for CBIT. So if in front of me, I've got the data for CBIT per 90 essentially. 5.39. So he's barely getting over half what he needs on an average basis to achieve those DEFCON points. So he's not going to pick up much. He's not even that great for baseline bonus. But what he does have is good clean sheet potential, playing in a very good defence in Aston Villa. And when you look at Villa's fixtures over the first 8, Villa have the best fixtures over the first 8 out of all teams. So you have to also have players that can keep clean sheets and have good fixtures. You can't only look at DEFCON points. So I feel like with this back five, I've got a good combination of everything, but it's also not the best defence. It's because I've tried to squeeze so much in my forward line, as you'll see, I've had to take a bit of money out of the defence. I would like to ideally have a 6 million defender, whether that be Gvardiol, Gabriel, Virgil van Dijk. It would be nice to have not only a 6 million defender, but also a defender from one of those top 3 teams. So yeah, I don't think it's perfect. A bench, so three of my bench players are Verbruggen, Konsa and Kilman on this bench boost. It's not great, but if they can pick me up 10 to 12 points and then I get the bench boost out of the way and I don't have to think about it until the second half of the season, that feels fantastic to me. So yeah, that's the back line. Let's move on to the midfield and you'll see that it's a little bit weaker than you might expect. So moving on to the midfield, and as I said, it is a little bit weaker than you might expect when you also see that my defence is a little bit weaker than you've seen maybe some other people have when they've got 2 £6 million defenders. You obviously need to wait to see the forward line to see why I've spent all my money there, but I'll also justify why I've spent my money there as well, because if I was to look at this draft without having my thought process, I think that's a really weak midfield. It's far too top heavy, but there is a reason for that. So let's look at the midfield. I've got Cole Palmer in there as my premium asset. I would be insanely surprised if I don't start the season with Cole Palmer. I think coming in at 10.5 million, I don't necessarily think it's hugely underpriced, but I think it is a very good price for him. And what I love about Palmer, Palace, West Ham, Fulham, Brentford, United, the fixtures go on. None of them are like standout there. I think their first really good fixture is game week 9 against Sunderland. But they're just really decent fixtures. And Palmer, you can just play in any game. He's got such a high ceiling. I know he really struggled in the back half of the season. All of 2025, he's really struggled. But we know what he can do on his day. He should still be on penalties as well. And I think Chelsea started to trend in the right direction. Look at how well they did in the Club World Cup. I could see him looking really good, especially linking up with the likes of João Pedro as well. I just think Cole Palmer will have a really strong start to the season. And I think given everything he offers, I would be surprised if he's not in my team. So he is actually probably the most locked on, maybe the most locked on player in he's not really left any of my drafts. Yeah, I really like Cole Palmer. And then one player that has entered my draft, and again, I think I want for game week 1, is actually Morgan Rogers. There's this thing with Morgan Rogers where he's consistent, right? Rogers doesn't really go massively off too often. He had a couple of, I think, a 14-pointer against Man City last season, if you remember. I think it was Man City. But he can get those double-digit hauls. But often with Rogers, what you're getting is maybe like an assist or a 1 goal. Maybe not tons of bonus. But across the season last year, Rogers had 19 attacking returns. And he started 37 games. If I ask, what are you looking for in a midfielder? Attacking returns, security of minutes, good fixtures, and not too expensive. I've just described Morgan Rogers to you. He's only 7 million. He'll start almost every game. Really fantastic opening fixtures after the first maybe 1 or 2 for really just the Newcastle game. It's the only truly tricky one for Aston Villa. Then goes on a really nice fixture run. And I think he's going to continue to improve Morgan Rogers as well, right? We're going off the basis of what he did last year, but he's a young player. I think he could continue to just develop. And what I also like about Aston Villa is the goal share isn't that great across their team. You know, for some teams where you like, when the goal pops up on your notifications, you're like, it could be anyone that scores. When it's someone like Nottingham Forest, you're like, that's Chris Wood. When it's Aston Villa, you just know it's going to be Rodgers or Watkins usually. In their most recent preseason game, Rodgers and Watkins both get attacking returns again. You just sort of know they're going to be involved. And I think Aston Villa will have another decent season. So yeah, I don't think Rodgers is like a perfect standout pick and you have to own him. But when I go through my framework of decision-making in FPL about what I am looking for from an asset, well, he's that guy. So yeah, I really like Morgan Rogers. I think he's in at a tricky price point, but also a nice one too. So Palmer and Rogers, the two little sort of cold celebrations, I like the pair of them. Iliman Ndiaye has been in a lot of my teams as well. Firstly, because I love saying his name, and I think I say it differently every time I say it, but it's great opening fixtures for Everton. Leads away on the opening day is nice. He should be on penalties. He looked pretty lively in their most pre-season game. That's the only good thing I can say because Everton didn't look particularly good overall. But I do think that Everton are going to have a really good season. I think they finished the season 13th last year. David Moyes did incredible work when he came in. And I think for a full season, we're going to see them do really well. And what I also liked is we didn't just see them defend. They were attacking quite a bit. So I don't think it's like the Sean Dyche Everton that we're used to seeing. I think it's more like a mid-table sort of average attacking side in which I expect Iliman Ndiaye to get some attacking returns. Again, I don't think he's a game breaker. He's not locked in my team. But I think given what he offers in terms of security of minutes, we think possible penalties and good opening fixtures, I like him a lot. I've got Yankuba Minte in my starting 11. This is one that a lot of people won't like. I honestly just think in FPL you should pick some players because you like them. At the back end of last season, in the final episode of my podcast, FPL Therapy, I went through and I spoke about some of the players that I was keeping an eye on and that I was very interested to see their price in Game Week 1. Yankuba Minte is one of them. I just think he's a very talented footballer with an incredibly high ceiling. When I watch him, I think he's got the ability to do really, really well in the Premier League. He just needs to string together enough starts and start to get that sort of confidence in his attacking returns. But he's got really decent underlying data. The fixtures when I need him are actually really good. I know they don't look great overall. I don't need to play him in Game Week 3. Fulham at home in the opening day is nice. Everton away is not perfect, but that's okay. Bournemouth and Spurs, I don't think are awful fixtures. And at that price, you could go for a defensive midfielder, and I've got one on my bench, but I also think you want to have a bit of fun with it. So I just think Yankuba Minte is a fun asset to own. If everyone picked the same players, it would be extremely boring. Content creators always get criticised because we pick the same players. I've not seen anyone else with Yankuba Minte, and I really like him at 6 million. So that's the reason he's in there. And then one that I think will become more and more popular to the point where he might also become template is Anderson. We know, because of what we've spoken about, that DEFCON points are going to be extremely valuable in FPL. Anderson is arguably the best. Last season, it was only Caicedo that got more DEFCON points than him. I think he picked up 36, Anderson, but he didn't start as many games as you would expect him to this season. He also takes some set pieces, and he has the ability to go and get attacking returns. Last season, we didn't really see that, but earlier on in his career, he had the ability to go and get 5 assists, 5 goals. Might get 12 attacking returns if you're lucky across the season. So add that all together, we could be looking at a player that can go out there and get you 150, 160 points, which at 5.5 million is pretty decent. So I think at that price, considering Forest's opening fixtures, I don't mind him. 54% of his games last season, he picked up DEFCON points. So every other game, you're going to get 2 points for him. Plus the clean sheet point, occasionally again, because Forest are okay defence. In fact, they're a very good defence. And then the possible attacking return, he might get the odd assist in there as well. In a single game, let's say he gets the appearance points, 1 clean sheet points, an assist, that's 6, plus 2 DEFCON points. He can pick up 8 points. That's pretty decent for 5.5 million. I'm not fully all in on DEFCON to the point where I'm going to have like Caicedo, Baleba and Anderson as part of my midfield 5. But as one of my picks, I don't mind it. So that's the midfield 5 as of right now. Rodgers, Minte, Palmer, Ndiaye, Anderson. What don't I like about this? No Mohamed Salah, right? That's the huge talking point. I've dropped the best asset ever in the game for the last 5-10 seasons. He's not in my team. He's just hit over 344 points last season, I think it was. He's not in my team. Liverpool are just going from strength to strength. They've strengthened in the market. They're probably going to have a good season. I don't have Florian Wirtz. That's a big omission in my team, right? Lots of people have him. I don't have anyone between the price of 6.5 or 7 and Palmer. So I don't have anyone in that mid-price bracket of 8 to 8.5. I don't have Saka. There is a lot missing from this midfield. But as I said, apart from Salah, who is obviously the big omission, most people will choose one of Palmer or Saka. And I just don't really like the assets between 7 and 10. Florian Wirtz, I think, is going to be really good, and he probably will justify his price tag, but I don't mind backing against him for the first few opening games, which are pretty tricky for Liverpool. Foden, I don't know if I want to take the risk from the off. Pep Roulette scares me. Cunha and Mbeumo, Man United's fixtures are rubbish. They've got Arsenal on the opening day. Don't want to go there. Eze at 7.5 looks like he could be off potentially to Arsenal. If not, maybe. But again, Palace's fixtures aren't there. You could go for a Gibbs White, but at that point, why would I not just go for Anderson or Hudson-Odoi? I don't know. I just don't really like the players in and around that price. So actually, as much as there are 3 cheap midfielders here, I think it's okay. So, cheapish defence, cheapish midfield. Let's take a look where all the money is, which is the forward line. So, moving on to the front 3 and then looking at the team in its entirety. As things stand, it is currently Watkins, Haaland and Solanke. That is probably the most top-heavy front 3 and the most top-heavy draft you have seen in a long, long time. But hopefully some of the justification in the introductory section and also throughout the team has kind of made sense. On Haaland versus Salah, all I will say, regardless of which side I fall, because I know probably the most liked top comment in this draft is going to be, there's no way you go without Salah in game week 1, or there's no way you pick Haaland instead. Everyone said that to me last year and I went without Haaland. And by the way, it didn't go overly well, I will admit that. But I don't think there is much between Salah and Haaland this year. That's all I will say. And I said the same last year. And in all honesty, across the first 8 to 10 weeks, there wasn't much. It was just the unfortunate case that in the first 5 weeks, Haaland got 11 goals in 5 games, right? So let's see what happens this season. But on paper, before the events happen, I would say Haaland versus Salah is close. Traditionally, they've got very similar data. In fact, often Haaland has slightly better. They both start the season well. Haaland has slightly better fixtures, I would say, overall. But in game week 4, obviously, Salah's got that great game against Burnley. Salah's also a midfielder, and I would say playing for the slightly better team right now. We'd expect Liverpool to do better than Man City. So when you go back and forth and then consider Salah is slightly more expensive, I don't think there's a huge amount between them. The other thing that I love about Erling Haaland right now is he's lower owned, and I want to try and win FPL every season. I'll never do it. Don't get me wrong, I'll never do it, but you've got to try, right? And if Haaland's lower owned, and I think there's not much between them, that's a huge advantage. But I also love that I quite like the expensive forwards. We'll speak about Watkins in a second. I'm recording this before we have Gyökeres's price, but I expect it to be around 9 million. So let's say it's around 9 million. Gyökeres at that expensive price. Ekitike, if he can nail down a spot in the starting 11. You've got Isak, whether he stays at Newcastle or if he moves to Liverpool, assuming he stays in the Prem. Haaland down to any of them frees up the money to do Palmer up to Salah or to just improve the midfield. I could do something like Minte up to Florian Wirtz. So Haaland is at a lovely price point in terms of I can get to any of those expensive forwards and then it frees up a bit of money for the midfield. I really like him. And again, if I'm going off the basis, in case you didn't watch that first section, where I might free hit him for, I cover Salah in the most dangerous fixture against Burnley anyway. I'll own the 3 best Liverpool assets for that game. I will then own Haaland in game week 6 against Burnley, when not many people will have him, or they will have to free hit themselves in that week. So yeah, I don't think there's much between them. I'm not sitting here for a second and saying I've locked in Haaland and I'm going without Salah. I just think that there was a drop-off from Salah in 25. Now, there is definitely a chance that the reason for the drop-off was he had the new contract nailed in, right? He knew that he didn't have to keep performing at that level. And also, Liverpool won the league pretty early. I know they didn't statistically, but it did get to a point where it's like Liverpool have won the league. So that might be the reason for the drop-off. He's had a summer. We know Salah will be in the gym every single day across the summer getting ready. So I expect him to do really well. It's about, can Haaland match him, and can the rest of the team that I've built also do well too? So I like Erling Haaland. I think he's great. I know what he can do because I went against him last year, and I think he could start the season well. On Ollie Watkins, it's a similar kind of thing of like, I love that he's covering that price point of Watkins, Gyökeres, Ekitike, Isak, all in and around that sort of same expensive price. Because if I went without, and I've seen a lot of drafts, my first few drafts were the same, of like a front 2 of Solanke Welbeck or Solanke João Pedro. What is your plan if Watkins, Haaland, Ekitike, Isak, Gyökeres all start absolutely twatting in the goals for fun? What do you do then? Right? And I know you could say the same. What if Salah and Saka and Wirtz will do really well? I have the same issue in midfield, but I could just see a lot of those forwards doing really well. As I said, Ollie Watkins has outscored Haaland 2 seasons in a row. He's very consistent. What I like about Haaland is Haaland does it in short bursts. He'll get like 50 points in 3 weeks, right? That not many people could do anything close to. Whereas Watkins will just tick along with goals. And at the end of the season, he's got loads of points. And again, when you look at those fixtures for Aston Villa, they really are so strong. Watkins is also a placeholder for Gyökeres. I don't have the price right now, but if he comes in at 8.5 or 9, it will just go probably in for Watkins. And I'll just have Rodgers and Gyökeres. It will then give me an Arsenal attacker, because as of right now, I've got no Liverpool, no Arsenal, and 1 Man City. I mean, that's terrible, really, isn't it? Like, you can't only own 1 player from those 3 teams. You can't own 0 players from Liverpool and Arsenal, although their fixtures aren't great. But anyway, I could definitely see Gyökeres coming into that Watkins spot. So I've kind of got him there as that 9 million placeholder, but I also think he could be in for another really good season. Solanke at 7.5 won't be for everyone. But again, when I list the criteria or framework for making a decision, penalties, I love that he's got pens. Good minutes, I still think with all of their signings, he'll have good minutes. And good fixtures. And good data. He isn't the best finisher. I just think he'll do I really rate Thomas Frank, like even more than most people. I think he's that good. When Manchester United were looking for a new manager before we got Amorim, I was desperate for Thomas Frank. I think he's exceptional. The way that he speaks, the way that he manages, his understanding of the game. And we see what Wissa has done at Brentford. I'm not discrediting Wissa because clearly it's him that's doing it, but I think Thomas Frank deserves a lot of credit for that. So I could see him having a really good season, maybe a 20-goal season under Thomas Frank. So yeah, that's kind of the team as things stand. So if we look at it in its entirety, again, the huge criticism, no Salah, but also no Liverpool and no Arsenal. If I wanted another or a Liverpool or Arsenal asset, it would probably be Van Dijk or Gabriel if Gabriel's fit, because he's got a muscle strain at the moment. But at 6 million, they're both great, but I just can't quite afford that. And then all of their other assets like Wirtz, Salah, Saka, Gyökeres, they're all going to be very expensive. but I quite like, again, that Watkins placeholder there. Any other issues with the team? I mean, not massively for me. There are a few cheap attackers, right? I've got Minte, Ndiaye, and Anderson, but I can rotate them. I've got a really strong 5 defenders that can all rotate in. I can decide if I want to play Verbruggen or Sanchez. It looks weird, right? When you look at the draft, it looks uncomfortably strange. But hopefully once you have the context and the thought process, it's not as bad as it first looks. So let me know what you think of the draft down below. Give it a rating out of 10. What I'm going to do in this final section is a bit of planning ahead to show you what the team looks like in future weeks, why I might play my free hit in Game Week 4 if I went with something like this, and just how it starts to shape up in terms of those rotations. So guys, I'm just jumping over to Fantasy Football Hub to show you my team for sort of Game Weeks 1 to 5 we'll kind of look at, to just show you that some of the players rotate quite well. And then again, looking at Game Week 4, why I might consider playing the free hit. Again, only if I go with this very specific draft. Otherwise, my chip strategy could change. Just to show you how easy it is, by the way, to get your team rated, but also to get your team into this My Team feature so that you can start planning ahead. Again, there'll be a link down below. You can check it out for free. And then if you decide that you want to sign up to the more premium memberships, you can get 50% off for the annual subscriptions. If you import team, click on a screenshot. Look how quick this will be. It's done. Just like that. Like, it's so easy. It's got even quicker this year as well. So I'll put that team in, and then I'll click optimize. There we go. Perfect. So what have they got my bench like? They're not a big fan of Tarkowski. That's interesting, isn't it? It's not too far off how I had my team laid out, though. So at the moment, that says 87%. But once we optimize it for future weeks, it will change slightly. So I'll do predicted 1 game week to make it a bit easier to follow. So that's the team for Game Week 1. In Game Week 2, defensively, I'm absolutely fine. So Konsa comes in instead of Van der Ven. So it's Konsa, Murillo, and Tarkowski with decent fixtures. And then in terms of my 8 attackers, it's just really Solanke doesn't have a great fixture because he's playing at City. I could just play Solanke, by the way, because he's a very solid asset. But I could also play Anderson against Crystal Palace if I wanted to. So I have that option there. But all of the other attackers have pretty good fixtures, and I've got 3 good defenders. So one of the criticisms of a bench boost in Game Week 1 that I saw a lot of people say was that a bench boost for Game Week 1 is that Game Week 2 doesn't look good. So I've tried to build my team in a way where I bench boost Game Week 1, but Game Week 2 doesn't look absolutely terrible. Game Week 3 is one of the weaker weeks, but actually the defense looks okay. So I'd probably keep it the same. Konsa, Murillo, Tarkowski against Palace, West Ham, Wolves. I've got Sanchez against Fulham because Verbruggen has Man City. And then in terms of my 8 attackers again, the one with the difficult fixture is Minte. So he goes to the bench, and then I've got 7 other attackers with good fixtures. Now, is it ideal starting Anderson quite a lot? No, but also, I spoke really highly of him. We have to change our thinking. It feels weird playing him, but if he can pick up 4 points or 5 points, clean sheet point and 2 DEFCON points against West Ham, that's absolutely acceptable, a 5-pointer, right? In the long term, I think these DEFCON players that pick up defensive contribution points will be really solid. So that's Game Week 3. Game Week 4, it's not as good, right? Murillo's got Arsenal, Anderson's got Arsenal, Ndiaye's got Villa, Tarkowski's got Villa, Minte's Bournemouth away. I've then got Rodgers and Watkins against Tarkowski. It's just not an ideal week. And then when we look at players like Salah's going to have Burnley away, right? I would very much like to have Salah that week. Not Isak, but Newcastle players would have Wolves at home. There are quite a few teams in Game Week 4 where I'm like, I quite like their fixtures and I don't own them. So if I were to go for this, again, this very specific team that you've seen here with no Liverpool or few Liverpool, no Newcastle, I think a Game Week 4 free hit works quite well. You can see my Game Week rating is 79%, only 51.4 predicted points. That is a week where you could benefit from it. Then coming back in Game Week 5, it starts to look a little bit better again. So I'll put Kilman back in instead of Tarkowski. So I've got Konsa against Sunderland, Murillo against Burnley, Kilman against Crystal Palace. In terms of my 7 attackers, it's looking a little bit weaker now. But again, remember I've got transfers, by the way. But Minte could come back in instead of Ndiaye, for example. This week I could play Sanchez against United or Verbruggen against Spurs. I'm not going to go much beyond that because, again, I'll have free transfers. Things will change. But it's a good opening 3 weeks. And players like Rodgers and Watkins, I like them because they've got great fixtures, right? Burnley in 7, Fulham at home, Sunderland away. I've picked some players here that long-term I think will serve me quite well. And I would say Spurs are another example, right? Even after Game Week 4 and 5, they've then got Wolves at home, Leeds away. So this is a team where I think I've found a balance between the bench boost looks okay enough to play it. There's enough rotation where I've got players that can come in for the weeks where I need them without it being where I've spread the money ridiculously thin. Like the starting 11 still has most of the money, But again, it just depends. Like if you expect Arsenal and Liverpool to come out the blocks absolutely flying, then this is a terrible draft. Absolutely, I can accept that. I'm by no means locked in on this. But yeah, do check out Fantasy Football Hub if you want to get your team rated firstly, but also if you want to plan ahead a little bit. As I've been saying for a while now, best site out there, right? You've got Opta statistics, which aren't going to load to my internet. You've got a fixture analyzer. You've got player comparison tools. So if you want to compare to your players, you've got player profiles as well. Like if you want to look at one player specific profile, you can. You've got lots of different articles as well from all of the fantastic writers over at Fantasy Football Hub. So there'll be a link down below. Get your team rated for free. Sign up for 50% off. It supports me, but I highly recommend it. So if we now go all the way back to my team like this is the team as things stand. Tell me how much you hate it. Maybe some of you will enjoy it. And we'll be back, I'm sure, in about a week with my new updated draft. So if you've watched this point and you're not subscribed and you want to see my next updated draft, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to drop a like. And yeah, it might change a hell of a lot. So guys, there you have it. That is my updated draft ahead of game week 1. Something a bit different. Again, not for the sake of being different, but it's nice to arrive at something which I've not seen too many other people go for, a Haaland draft for a bench boost one with no Salah. So we'll see how I get on with it. It might be that the next draft has no Haaland or Salah, but we'll see very soon. Please do consider subscribing if you've enjoyed this video. Drop a like as well. As I said, check out Fantasy Football Hub too, and I will catch you very soon. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.